Today in the show we have Composable CryptoPunks, Render moving to Solana, 20EX promising to aggregate inscriptions, and so much more. I'm your host, Mauricio Magaldi, and this is Blockdrops, your weekly digest on blockchain for business. These news are not a form of endorsement, sponsorship, or encouragement for consumption and are meant for educational purposes only. One of the most interesting things about Web3 is a characteristic enabled by permissionlessness and smart contracts called composability. Composability means that you can actually interact with a token that was issued by someone else with your own application, with your own smart contract. And one piece of news caught my eye this week, which is a new wrapper smart contract. A wrapper smart contract picks as a token from another smart contract, wraps it around this new logic. And this is interesting because this is Yuga Labs' attempt to make the CryptoPunks, the original OG NFT PFPs, or non-fungible tokens that are used as a profile picture, to become more useful. So here's the story. CryptoPunks were created in 2017, much earlier than the current industry standard for the Ethereum ecosystem called ERC 721. ERC 721 allows tokens that are minted in that standard to do a bunch of functionalities that the old CryptoPunk standards don't allow you to. So what Yuga Labs did, they created this new smart contract. It's called CryptoPunk 721, very suggestive name, that transforms the original CryptoPunk into an ERC 721 token. What that does is that it enables the CryptoPunk holder to actually perform functions in Web3 that are very characteristic to 721 standards, which the older standard didn't allow them to do. In a sense, it will include the ability to trade the CryptoPunk token in marketplaces such as Blur and OpenSea, which are pretty much based around the 721 standard, but also will enable the holders to engage into DeFi, the decentralized finance, by using those CryptoPunks as collateral for loans, for instance, in other financial operations. So 0xQuit, the developer for the smart contract who works at Yuga Labs, explains that the reason behind developing this new wrapper is that it kind of highlighted the limitations of the original CryptoPunks token standard. And obviously they want the users to do more with the token. So there are other wrappers that were used for CryptoPunks in the past. Not all of them were by Yuga Labs, but those were also very cumbersome solutions to the problem. So this new wrapper has a much more friendlier interface that simplifies the overall process. It's, again, provided by Yuga Labs, which is the proprietor of the CryptoPunks IP, and will allow CryptoPunks to benefit from all the other standard NFT practices that are existing in Web3 today. According to 0xQuit, there's additional features coming into the future in this wrapper, including addressing the front-running situation where if you're going to buy a CryptoPunk, someone can front-run you and make a better offer ahead of you because there's this MEV situation in Ethereum, which is the maximum extractable value. You can actually see what's on the mempool and then order transactions to play against someone else. So this is supposed to also help address some of those shortcomings when front-running happens. All in all, it's a progress. I'm very much interested in seeing what other collections that are legacy tokens are going to be wrapped in such a standard to make them more useful. But I'm much more interested in seeing how the ecosystem is actually going to leverage now the 721 standard in such a valuable native crypto asset such as CryptoPunk when it comes to DeFi. So this is something that we're going to see, and this is something that we'll keep tabs for you here at the Block Drops podcast. As we're only resuming the Block Drops podcast in English this week, you probably missed when we introduced the DePIN concept last week. DePIN is the Decentralized Physical Infrastructure Network. In other words, these are physical infrastructure networks that are managed through the blockchain, so they're decentralized. And they offer the ability for people who actually own the physical components of the infrastructure to actually rent that piece of the infrastructure and be paid for it. So this week, one of those headlines caught my eye, which is that the Render Network Foundation announced that they are transferring the tokens for the Render Network onto Solana. So Render Network is a network of GPU, graphic processing units. So if you have a GPU on your computer, you can connect to the Render Network. You can get your idle capacity and rent it, and someone is going to pay for you in rendered tokens. Interestingly enough, because DePIN is somewhat of a recent phenomenon, Render has been around since 2017 on the GPU state. One thing that kind of prompted the increase on the attention to Render Network is that because of the high demand for GPU in the recent years, especially with the introduction of the metaverse and more recently AI processing, there's a lot more demand for GPU than there is GPU available currently in the market. You can see that through the increase of the NVIDIA market cap in the recent year, right? So very interesting that this is something that is from another technology has picked up so much interest that is now kind of crossing into the world of crypto with the DePIN. And another point on this piece of news is that the choice for Solana. Solana has been having a lot of attention recently, especially for their Saga decentralized phone. But according to the note, after reviewing a number of blockchains, including Polygon, Cosmos, Algorand, Optimism, and Aptos, the Render Network Foundation decided to go for Solana, considering the availability of a developer community, the network throughput, the liquidity available for tokens, the manageable transaction fees, the languages that they're using for writing code, and also integration to smart contracts. The community vote on the network, from the Render Network, Solana got 54% of the voting, while Polygon, where Render currently runs, got 14%, and Ethereum mainnet, layer 1, got 10.5% of the votes. Reason of that move is that they are anticipating future network growth, so there is a need for higher throughput, low latency, and in the settlement, and obviously making it easier for people to run their own nodes. According to Jules Urbach, the founder of Render Network, and here I quote, "Moving Render's core infrastructure to Solana is a watershed moment that unlocks major new capabilities like real-time streaming and dynamic NFTs. The Render Network remains committed to advancing to a fully decentralized ecosystem that harmonizes supply, demand, and infrastructure within the GPU processing landscape," end quote. They're introducing, as part of this change, a burn and mint equilibrium model, which tends to manage better the availability of the Render tokens. So if you're a token holder, you can both benefit from the price action, but also you're not paying exorbitant fees to use the network if you need to. So there's got to be a balance, because in essence, a two-sided marketplace, so it's important to have that balance in the tokenomics. I'm very much interested in seeing how the DePIN landscape is going to evolve in 2024. I think the change to Solana is an interesting technical decision, but more importantly, it's interesting that these got so much support from the render community. So we're going to keep tabs on the DePIN evolution across the next 12 months and see how this really breaks into the mainstream. One of the recent Bitcoin phenomenons was the introduction of inscriptions upon the Taproot hard fork, with the ability to inscribe data directly onto the chain at the Satoshi level. Satoshi is the smallest fraction of a Bitcoin. New features are being made available, so you can actually write new data directly on chain. This led to the creation of the ordinals, which are ways to account for Satoshis depending on their rarity. They're called ordinals because every Satoshi is numbered in an ordinal manner. And BRC20 tokens, which mimic the ERC20 from the Ethereum ecosystem into the Bitcoin ecosystem, enable them to do fungible tokens like stablecoins. And obviously, because this is a open source, permissionless environment, we're seeing inscriptions such as these two standards coming into the Ethereum virtual machine based chains because it's cheaper to actually inscribe those pieces of information into a fraction of an ETH or any other native token, rather than writing a smart contract such as an ERC20 and having that process into the blockchain, because that's much more expensive because it requires on-chain logic. So inscribing seems to be much cheaper, although it has its own drawbacks, such as having a good chunk of the rules written off-chain in a centralized manner. So there is a trade-off between an ERC20 standard and an inscription standard, and this is still up for debate because all of this is super new. What's very interesting, this was a discussion I had with my friend Jeff Prestes on LinkedIn, is if this is a standard, then it becomes a standard and it becomes easier to interoperate. So there will be opportunities for people to actually use inscriptions in multi-chains and perform business functions that are similar across chains depending on the use case. Obviously, this creates a lot of divergence, but this week a note caught my eye, which was the announcement of the 20EX, or the 20 exchange. The promise of the 20 exchange is to offer a platform that will be more efficient as an aggregator of inscriptions across a variety of chains, right? If you have BRC20 on Bitcoin, you have BSC20 on the Binance Smart Chain, you have Sol S20 on Solana, etc., etc. So these are all across the space, and it's hard to trade, and it's hard to actually monetize those tokens. So what 20EX is aiming to offer is a platform that will offer an aggregating function, so you can actually have on-chain liquidity management across a variety of chains that are using this inscription standard. Right? They're recorded on-chain with an external numbering system, so they have the minting and the trading processes are complicated because not all data is on-chain. So according to the announcement, they are trying to aggregate across the Ethereum ecosystem, Bitcoin, Lightning Network. All of these experts came together and created this plan or this platform that is a liquidity aggregator that will hopefully minimize the slippage between the transactions and potentially optimizing the profit when you're trading across different tokens or inscriptions across different blockchains. According to Gerald Check, the founder of 20X, and here I quote, "The next bull run will be led by the rise of community-driven inscription tokens and fair launch projects." End quote. Well, if that's going to be true or not, I don't know, but the fact that we're seeing this kind of emerge as a standard that can be used across different chains, and that aggregators can actually leverage that kind of single standard and create these marketplaces that are cross-chain, seem to me rather interesting, because interoperability is still to this day a big necessary hurdle that the industry needs to overcome. And if inscriptions are the standard to do that, it's going to be very interesting to see how we balance between interoperability and the centralization that is still required to mint and policy these inscriptions on this kind of off-chain rule set. So it's going to be interesting to see how those things settle, and we're gonna keep tabs on this for you. In a week packed full of news, here's more. HKMA, the Monetary Authority of Hong Kong, says that stablecoins can be seen as interface between crypto and traditional finance. ZK Pilates launches the new integration for data between public blockchains and the enterprise world by one of our friends of the show, Jeff Prestes. A lobby group in India, the BWA, requests governmental action against 9 foreign exchanges. JP Morgan, from Jamie Dimon, who plays against Bitcoin, will act as the facilitator for the Bitcoin ETF by BlackRock. The Minister of Management and Innovation in Public Services in Brazil opened 6 new positions for consultants to work at the Workgroup for Digital Economy at the G20. The blockchain IOTA announced that they will adopt Layer 0 to interoperate with 20 other blockchains. The Blockchain Gaming Alliance published their new annual report about the state of the industry. So if you're into blockchain gaming, this is for you. And yours truly took a little bit of a part in the super spaces on Twitter for the end of the year spaces by the invitation of Vitor Siofi and Danny Min and João Curi. It was amazing. If you speak Portuguese, go check it out. Catch us online. We're on Instagram at blockdropspodcast, on Twitter at blockdropspod or 0x Mauricio. We're on Lens at blockdrops.lens. We have a newsletter on LinkedIn. Write to us at blockdropspodcast@gmail.com, and you can listen to the Blockdrops podcast at Spotify, iColab, Faberbun Tech, and all of the other major streaming platforms. Yay! Shout out today for the people who share the links you will find in the episode notes. Jeff Prestes, Cláudia Mancini, Dani Schaber, Victor Siofi, João Curi, Carlos Arena. And don't forget to rate us on your favorite player. This is all for today. Stay rare, stay weird. LFG.